The airport glass reflected a stranger back at me. Black dress, red eyes, a face trained not to crack. I pressed send and watched the 3 dots bloom and die. "We're busy, try Uber. Why didn't you plan better?" The words slid into me like paper cuts, small, precise, bleeding all the same. No worries. That's what I wrote, that's what I meant. I had just buried my husband in a country that smelled like rain and incense. I watched the earth close over him and felt the ground accept what my family never would when you learn to stand alone at a grave. You learn something else, too. Silence can be a weapon. We weren't always like this once. My family clapped when I brought him home once. My mother cried happy tears into his shoulder. My brother called him brother before he learned the word envy. We ate dinners that ran long, we told stories that grew teeth, we promised to show up. Then money crept in, not mine, his contracts overseas, long months apart, gifts mailed home, like apologies, and with distance came whispers, suggestions, little revisions to the truth that favored them. I was the one who changed. They said I was the one who didn't plan. They said. The night before he died, he called me from a hotel balcony, city lights behind him. Like a constellation he couldn't name, he told me he loved me, he told me he'd be home soon. He told me something else too, his voice lowering, the way it did when he didn't want to scare me. "I found something," he said, "about your brother, about the trust." I asked him to wait, to explain. The line went quiet, the world tilted in the morning. A consular officer used careful words: accident, unfortunate, investigation, ongoing. At the funeral, overseas, I watched men who didn't know him lower him into the ground. I memorized the order of their hands. I memorized how grief sharpens the edges of truth. I came home carrying a folder, documents, screenshots, an unfiled complaint. Had started, but never sent a promise he'd made to protect me if he couldn't be there to do it himself. The changes had been subtle before the evidence turned loud. My brother's new car, my mother's sudden vacations, the way they talked about my husband's work like it was communal property. The way my calls went unanswered when I asked about the trust my husband had set up to support our future kids. The way paperwork arrived pre-signed, my name filled in with a handwriting that wasn't mine. Grief is a fog, but fog lifts. I didn't scream, I didn't accuse, I didn't ask for rides or apologies. I planned quietly, methodically, like my husband taught me when I was scared of heights, and he wanted me to cross bridges without looking down. Step 1. I became boring, I replied. Late, I thanked them for nothing. I accepted their version of events with a nod and a smile that told them I was done fighting. They relaxed, predators always do when prey stops running. Step 2. I gathered receipts, bank statements, routed through shell accounts, trust disbursements, redirected with forged addendums, emails drafted in my name, texts deleted but not erased, a pattern of withdrawals timed to my husband's flights, when he couldn't check, when he couldn't object. Step 3. I waited. Timing is everything. Justice arrives late, but it must arrive intact. The day I landed, the airport was too bright. My phone buzzed with indifference. Uber took 17 minutes. I sat in the back seat and watched my city pass by like a film I'd already seen. I went home alone. I opened my laptop. I forwarded everything to 3 places at once: a lawyer, a reporter, an auditor. I slept for 2 hours, the kind of sleep that isn't rest, just a pause. By evening, my mother called. I let it ring. My brother texted a joke I didn't laugh at. 6. The news broke. Local businessman under investigation for financial misconduct. The anchor's voice was neutral, but the graphics were not charts, names, dates. My brother's face, caught between confidence and panic. A mention of a trust intended for a grieving widow. A line about forged signatures. A quote from an unnamed source who had comprehensive documentation. My phone detonated. Mom first crying, then pleading, then accusing brother. Next, anger sharpened into fear. In real time, he asked how he asked, why he asked what I wanted. I didn't answer. I watched. By 9, the auditor's report was public by 10. Accounts were frozen by midnight. The board issued a statement by morning. My brother was unemployed. My mother's vacations were canceled, and the house they bragged about was suddenly too big to afford. They came to me the next day, sat on my couch like strangers who didn't know the rules of my home. My mother tried to touch my arm. I moved it away. My brother stared at the floor like it might swallow him. I told them the truth. Finally, not loudly, not kindly, precisely. I asked for a ride. I said you told me to plan better. My brother started to explain. I let him talk until his words ran out of oxygen. I said no worries, I continued, and I meant it. I planned. They looked at me, then really looked, and saw someone they hadn't accounted for, someone who learned how to bury the dead and resurrect the truth in the same week. I didn't gloat. Revenge doesn't need applause. I stood and opened the door. What about family? My mother asked, her voice small. I thought of my husband's last call, the lights behind him, the way love sounds when it's honest. Family shows up, I said, even at the airport. When they left, the house felt lighter, not empty, clean. That night, I watched the news again. Not for them, for me. For the quiet certainty that comes when you choose yourself without asking permission. I didn't lose my family that day. I learned who they were, and I kept the only promise that mattered. No worries. I planned.